I would feel it in my heart if his had stopped. Mine would stop too.
Hi, everyone. I'm Reshma Gopaldas. IndieWire's Consider This Conversations would like to welcome the creative team behind the acclaimed Starz series, Outlander. We will be taking an in-depth look at the craft, storytelling, and behind-the-scenes artistry that helped define television in 2025. Joining us today are executive producers Maril Davis and Matthew B. Roberts, production designer Mike Gunn, and costume designer Trisha Biggar. Maril, season 7B was 8 episodes. It's based on Diana Gabaldon's very robust books, to put it mildly. Give us a little context here. What is the average length of Diana's book? And then for context, how long is each episode?
I mean, Diana's books range probably 1,000 pages, Matt, at least. I mean, every episode length is, anywhere from 52 to 59 minutes.
Okay.
So you do the math. I mean, season 7 was, after season 1, probably our largest season. Once again, 16 episodes. I was looking back in my phone and realizing we started shooting season 7 almost 3 years ago. That just seems like a lifetime ago.
Yes, I think that'll be the hardest part of this interview. My first question is, when you think back on this half of the season, can you think of a scene that was like a highlight for you that you not only enjoyed making, but you enjoyed as a viewer?
I have 2 highlights, I guess. I mean, one has got to be the scene in the church at the end of the season where Claire hears Fanny singing, I do like to sit beside the seaside. Try saying that like 20 times. It just was so heartbreaking. It was obviously one of the last things we shot. It had such resonance in terms of, I think we're coming up on an anniversary of actually when Faith was filmed. It's just so heartbreaking, and it's such kind of a full circle moment. Obviously, the questions it brings up are things we will answer in season 8. So get ready. But it was just such a beautiful scene. And I just kind of always remember the look on Katrina's face when, as Claire, the pieces are kind of falling into place. It was just so beautiful and beautifully shot. And I don't know, it really stands out just as something more recent that was quite memorable.
We filmed so much out of order that early days when we first got there, we did the ships. We had to sail a ship up, and Mike and his team had to dock. Well, first we had to dock it and find a place for it, and then film out of order. That always stands out because it was filmed so far before the actual episode that everybody had to just get on board, literally pun intended, to make this scene work. And it was no small feat because, to literally sail a ship up from the south of England and get it docked and then get it dressed and and also find a place for it. But everybody played so nice, and that scene worked out so great when they walk out on deck and they're looking out into kind of this industrial dock area instead of all beautiful Scotland. So we had gray screens all around that, and it kind of reminded me when we were in South Africa doing all the ship scenes. So that one just stands out as logistically a really big deal. And then any scene that you get a lot of people in and you watch our team work, the dance, after the wedding where Claire comes down the stairs, kind of reminiscent of the red dress and all the finery in there, and how everybody had to learn how to dance. And that was very, challenging for people. So those are the scenes. And then, battle scenes are always amazing, that how the team puts it all together. And these two are, really good at their jobs.
Mike, how about you? What did you enjoy creating and also viewing?
Chestnut Street was a lovely set for us to kind of put together. And the scene in particular that sort of defined how we were going to build and how we were going to create Chestnut Street and what it became was the scene that the penny falls that William discovers actually who his father is. He's up on the landing and everything's kind of kicking off. Jamie's coming in, the redcoats are coming in. And when I read that scene, I realized that we needed so many kind of access points to that point to kind of get into his central kind of moment. And it was going to come through because he was experiencing this, but he was going to get attacked from all angles. He was getting attacked by his father, Jamie, the fact that he didn't want to, this was a revelation to him. He felt betrayed. I needed the set to try and reflect that. So it was that moment I read that dictated that set had to be a 2-tiered set. So that whole set became defined because of that scene. And that became quite a challenge because fitting it into the studio, which we were bursting for studio space at the time. We've got so many sets on this show. We have so many locations on this show. There's so many beats and moments, particularly 7B. 7B was a story that was kind of like a road movie because we weren't in their house. Their house had burned down, which we also filmed during the shoot of 7B actually, but that's another tale. So they were on the move throughout that whole season. So every episode had new sets. And Chestnut Street became the kind of, that was Lord John's place. So that became the kind of the one mainstay of that kind of season, which I loved that. I enjoyed that. It was...
Mike, I heard a rumor that Stuart Bryce, who's our set decorator, told Charles during that scene that he could not break the table downstairs because it was the only table we had, but that Charles ended up breaking it anyway. Is that true?
Yes, we only had one of those. We had one of many of those things. There was also the vase, the positioning of the vase on the hall on the way down as he was storming and kicking things and throwing things down. And the table was a unique table. And I'm not actually sure about this, but I think it might have been a hire. So I think Stuart was quite precious about it. We ended up buying it before we shot it, just because we didn't want to kind of damage someone else's property. And it did get damaged, so it's just as well we bought it. So we repaired it again and again for every take. So yeah, that's true.
Stuart should have told Charles, hey, the only thing you're allowed to break is the table, and then he wouldn't have touched it and he would have broken everything else.
Trisha, how about for you? What was one of your favorite scenes to create and then watch?
Well, I think they've mentioned all of them, but I loved the scene when we first went back to Scotland, because when I started Outlander, they had just arrived in the Americas, in the colonies, and that was my first episode where we were back where Outlander had sort of started. So the whole sort of that whole episode in a way, being in Scotland, was one of my favourites. The scenes there, seeing Lallybroch and the characters, and seeing Jamie and young Ian back where they started. I like that. And I also loved the Quaker wedding. I thought that had a beautiful feel to it, and it was beautifully lit, and the location was beautiful, and the costumes just looked great in it. And that was another one that I really enjoyed.
So I think in many ways you can say the success of this show is really built around this central love story with Claire and Jamie. So Maril, punting it back to you, what are your favorite parts of this story and bringing it to life so far into the story? Were there any moments in this half of the season where Katrina and Sam sort of surprised you, or there was a Jamie and Claire scene that stood out to you?
I mean, I think they always surprise me. I think their chemistry is so good. Well, it's more that we've gotten so used to them being so good together that I think we take it for granted in some ways. Do you know what I mean? Like that chemistry, you can't buy that. We've just kind of leaned on them, for all 8 seasons. And, so I don't think anything they do surprises me. I think they're that good together. But I think this season in the second half, one of our difficulties was there's a very iconic scene in the book where Jamie and Claire, after they've reunited, they get in a big fight because Jamie obviously is still quite jealous of Claire having slept with Lord John, and there's all these feelings, and they have this big kind of break tables, throw things to the ground, lovemaking scene and an argument. We wanted to do it like the book. We wanted to do it. It's this potting shed. It's at this garden, and I know Mike tried very hard to do that for us and make it come true. But we found a great greenhouse. We were going to try it in there, but then the lighting and the weather and locations. It's like sometimes you can't just go to one location. It has to kind of fit into the schedule. So we ended up putting it into the house on Chestnut Street, and there were many debates about that too, because it was like, are they going to fight about Lord John, but yet they're going to make love in Lord John's house? So many discussions about that. But I was really thrilled it all came together. And I think that's a true testament to Sam and Katrina, that they make everything work. Do you know what I mean? We throw a problem at them, we throw a problem at our production team, and Mike Gunn and his team made it work, in a way where, at first we were a little disappointed we couldn't go to the original place, but the scene turned out. And once again, it's a testament to Sam and Katrina. It's a testament to our production team, Mike Gunn and his team, that we pull these things off. And I think that's what I love about our show so much, that there's nothing we can't do. It might not be the way we wanted to do it, but it always ends up being something amazing, regardless if it's our original intention or not.
And thanks to you guys, no one will look at that dining table the same way. So, Matt, every season, how do you keep it fresh? I mean, for example, Jamie is dead. Jamie is alive. Do you ever say to yourself, no one's going to believe he's dead? Like, what do we do?
Absolutely. I said that. I mean, that was the first thing, is nobody's going to believe he's dead. Considering everybody already knew we had a season 8 and we weren't going to do it without Jamie Fraser. So the question that we pose in the writer's room, when we're reading the books and stuff, is how, not if. It makes a big difference when you're telling a story that way, instead of trying to fool the audience. The audience knows he's alive. It's just they're going to ask the question, how did he live? When is he coming back? I know he's coming back. Just how is this happening? So when you tell the story, when you break it down like that, then it makes it not easier for you. It just gives you a direction to go. When you start trying to add in suspense of if, it just doesn't work for our characters. Our characters live and the audience knows it. So you have to, honor your audience, know who you're writing for.
It's also, Matt, like what you're saying, that the audience know that Jamie is not dead, but the audience need to believe that Claire thinks that Jamie's dead.
As long as the characters think they're dead, that's the important part, and our actors bring that every day.
Sam and Katrina pull that out every single time because of their chemistry, because it's so clear that the audience can totally accept that that Claire thinks that Sam is dead. She was stunning in that episode. That was an amazing episode, actually.
Yeah,
it really was.
It was beautiful. I rewatched a few episodes last night, just in preparation for this, and it's amazing. I mean, I even know Jamie Fraser's never going to be dead. I'm holding you to that statement. And I also just teared up again just watching that performance. So, Mike, you have huge battle scenes, makeshift hospital scenes, house scenes, fights that happen on 2 levels. What set up this season was your biggest challenge, but also your best success? I know you talked about Chestnut Street. For me personally, I loved how you took the battle scene, Claire getting shot, and then transformed it into the most peaceful operating room I've ever seen. I actually was like, I would love to have surgery there, except with a full medical staff and electricity.
It's available on Airbnb. You can get that.
Oh,
I'll send you the link. The biggest challenge is, it's difficult to pick out singularly in a season what the biggest challenge is. But I think it's the whole season. It's, we're doing a show that's in Scotland that's set predominantly in season 7B in America in 1778, 1780. And it's having each episode and each set being coherent with what we've seen before and what we're going to see, so that it's a world that you believe. It's not just isolated things that look okay for that scene or for that character. Everything has to be coherent, has to be connected. And that's continually the hardest thing, is to kind of find places that are new and fresh, or find the places that are the same, but we can view them in a new or a different way that is fresh. And it's keeping that journey that Claire and Jamie are on, and keeping that all the way through, that we've got to be on that journey with them. So each set, each location has to have that kind of sense of, the new world, or their new chapter, or their new emotion. It's keeping all that together that I think is the hardest. And singularly, Tennant Church was a challenge because we didn't have that much time to build it. It was quite a big build. We wanted it to be quite dramatic because of it's the finale. It couldn't just be a small church. It had to kind of house the ending of their journey for that season. That contrast from the violence of the war that's outside and the horrid nature of the fact that Claire's been shot, to the serenity and the peace that's inside that they have, and that's how we finish for them. So that was a technical challenge, getting that done in time, but the biggest creative challenge is actually getting everything to kind of thread together to be a coherent journey of what their emotion is.
Yeah, I think you do a great job that every set tells its own story that augments the rest of your stories. And I think you guys do that so beautifully. Trisha, talk to us about that amazing dress that Claire wears for her big coming out as the new Mrs. Lord John Grey, the saddest bride that has ever existed. How long did it take to make that? What was the process behind it?
It took weeks and weeks to make it. Eventually, I wanted to make it without there being any seams in it, or just one way to get into it, but no seams in the lace. So it was pretty complicated for the ladies cutter and Sophie, and she spent a lot of time working out how that could be accomplished. And then there were many people working on different parts of it at different times or at the same time to have it made in the relatively small time they had to do it. I was very happy with it when it was finished, and I think Claire looked lovely in it, and we covered it eventually in little sparkles so that the candlelight would be picking it up.
And how do you work with actors? Like, how did Katrina try that on? Because she also has to dance in that very ornate dress.
She's great with costume. She's just sort of puts things on and wears them and behaves as if they're just regular clothes. There's really never any problems with things. And we try and make things that they're wearable too, so they're not going to be too long or too tight. People have to wear things for quite a long time. But yeah, she's marvelous. She just pops things on and off she goes.
Okay, so you guys do a very good job of adapting very tough book scenes. And Maril, you kind of talked about this. I wanted to say, the way the Jamie Claire reunion love scene is done is different in the book, and you guys adapted it in a great way. So what were some of the challenges filming that reunion?
Well, one, when you have a scene like that, it's this, for television, it ends up being quite a long scene.
Yeah.
And I remember one of the challenges for me personally was when we got the cut, it was broken into a few different moments. So there was the early fight, then we cut away, and then another part of the fight, and then we cut away, and then another part of the fight. And as I watched it over and over again, it just felt to me like it all needed to be together. We just needed to watch them go through this journey together in one big chunk. And it's always a challenge when you make a choice like that and you send it out into the world for other people to see, meaning, it goes through different stages that people, there's a producer's cut, and then it goes to the network and studio, and they look at it too. So you often wonder if you've made the right choice. So me, those are my challenges, is I have to live with the choice. I get some of the credit and all of the blame. So that's kind of my position, and I'm okay with that. But when you see the audience reaction, because that's who we're ultimately making this for, you see that the majority of the people really enjoyed, meaning it made them feel something. Whether that feeling is joy, I don't know, but it made them feel something. And that's literally, I think, all of our collective jobs is to help people feel the thing they want to feel. And if that's with Trisha and Mike, that's what the audience sees first. They see the set, they see the costumes, and it brings them into the dream. And as long as the story doesn't break the dream, then I'm doing my job. And that to me is always the challenge.
Going back a little bit, Claire, Lord John, and Jamie, that was a major plot twist from the books. What were some of the challenges in adapting that? Katrina and David Barry have both said that you guys had many discussions about it. Maril, how about you? Like, what was it like for you? Are there scenes that you read in the book and you're like, we can't do this on television?
I mean, that is a perfect example of a scene that we struggled to figure out how to adapt because, I'm a bit of a book purist, for good or for bad, in terms of, I've kind of had to learn over the years that sometimes the scene does work in the book. It doesn't necessarily when you get it up off its feet and try to film it. It's necessary to make some changes. If you ask Katrina and David, I think they struggled with how we're getting from A to B. Like, why would Lord John and Claire sleep together? It seems so kind of contrary to, certainly for Claire, her journey with Jamie and their kind of soulmate love affair. And there were so many discussions about how that journey would be as an actor to, are they so drunk that, she forgets her vows to Jamie? I think from our vantage point, it says nothing about her love for Jamie in a negative way. It says everything about the fact that she's so bereft, and she and Lord John are so out of their minds that they're clinging to each other. They're like, they're adrift in the sea, and they're just clinging to someone who feels the same way about a person that they both lost. And there's a line in the book. John says to Jamie, "We were both making love to you." And I think that's very true. There's no one that Lord John loves more than Jamie. No one that Claire loves more than Jamie. So in that way, it was a meeting of the minds. And to me, that was the creative way into that scene. But I know as actors, you really have to kind of figure out how you're going to get to that point. So I think it made it a little difficult in the choreography of how to bring that emotion into reality of movement.
Yeah, I really like the way their sort of, I don't know if we'd call it a love scene or whatever that was. Did you all at any point debate filming like a more graphic love scene involving the three of them? Because a lot of it is John imagining Jamie and Claire imagining Jamie. Matt, would you like to speak to this?
No, we never went down that road. There's things that we film, and I need this much footage to make this much. And I'll give you a great example is 512, Never My Love. There was a big section that's written out. It's all of Claire's disassociation and, her imagining things. And we wrote out a big script for that because the actors had to play those parts, but it was never going to be shown that way. It was never going to be shown in a linear story fashion. It was going to be segments. And I knew, I don't even like to think of it as, love making or them having sex or anything like that. What they were doing, they were grieving, and it manifested itself that way. So I knew in the cut that it was going to be fragmented, that there was never going to be a linear, this is how it started and this is how it finished, because it didn't start and finish. It just happened. And then it was over. And then we find them in bed the next day. And that's just where they ended up. So because they ultimately went to sleep. So to me, that's what it is. And I want the audience to fill in when we go, when there's flashes of it, the audience gets to fill in what their experience in life and reading it and feeling it and watching it. They get to fill in those gaps. I don't like to fill in every story gap.
Going for something a little lighter now, and the morning after scene with them was actually brilliant. Let's talk a little bit about, everyone at every job has a little BTS moments on their camera roll. What is one BTS moment that you captured on your phone? This is for anyone that you can recall and tell us about, and that you might not mind sharing with us.
I think one of the reasons why we're so protective of filming behind the scenes stuff is we spent a lot of time and effort creating this show for people. And in my world, it's like you find that perfect gift and you want to wrap it up and you want to put it under the tree, and you can't wait for your kids to open it up and you see their face on Christmas morning, or on their birthday or whatever. And we take such care in wrapping this up and what's inside, that we want that moment. We don't want anything to spoil it. And trust me, Stars and Sony have to pry these things out of me because I don't want anybody to see them until they see them. And
you don't want to tell them Santa's not real.
That's right.
You guys had a huge ending twist that deviated from the books. And Claire says, "I think our daughter Faith lived." It is such a beautiful, big moment. How did that go over with your team? Did it shock everyone? When did people learn? Did they learn at the read through? And Maril, what was your reaction?
Well, I do think everyone was like, what? How is it possible that that Fanny knows a song that Claire sang to Faith when supposedly Faith has died? How would that be possible? No one was there. But once again, those things, we kind of love to do that. At that point, we knew that 8 would potentially be our last season. So kind of felt like we had to go into the last season with a little bit of a drama, a big cliffhanger, something that we'd have to tie up some loose ends. So I think everyone was really excited about it, but also I don't think that many people necessarily at that point knew what we planned for season 8. Even we hadn't worked everything out at that point. So, we knew kind of the points we wanted to get to. I think everyone was really excited about it. And once again, I mean, it was such an emotional moment on set, both when you're wrapping up the season and everyone's kind of exhausted and you're at the end, but also because it's a really lovely full circle moment.
I think you injected new life into an old show in a beautiful way that makes season 8 so exciting to look forward to. Matt, I do have a quick question you probably won't answer, but how many endings to the show did you write and film?
I wrote more than 3. I knew that would be a challenge, especially the end of the season, but it was important that it not get out that what we were doing, and so we were very, very careful on how we did it, and I knew it would be very emotional, and especially wrapping up the whole, the whole series. It was, I would say, probably 4 really that went out into the world.
Well, everyone's going to be happy with whichever of the 4 you picked. I'm saying it now. Guys, thank you so much. Outlander season 7B. What a giant season, first of all. You were able to stuff so much information from the books into 8 episodes, and it was so beautifully executed. So on that note, what does your final season deliver in each of your opinions? 3 words from each of you to describe the end of this show.
1 word: finality. That's it. It's twice as much as 7, but it's finality. It has an epic end. Epic end. There's your 3 words.
I'm going to be surprised by the end because I didn't work on season 8. I worked on the prequel. So I'm looking forward to finding out the end.
Okay.
You've got an epic beginning.
Yes, everything. I'm looking forward to the whole thing.
Yes.
I would say emotional, heartbreak, tears.
It's such an individual thing that's the thing over the course of these 13 years of being on Outlander. I've learned that whatever it delivers to people, it's so individual, and that's really hard to do. So I hope that it delivers everything that individual has experienced through the 100 episodes prior. I hope this one episode gives them, it's satisfying. That's the one word. I hope it just satisfies them.
That's
That
great.
was like 2,000 words.
No. That was the preamble, then the period, and then one word, because I use brevity, is satisfying.
Okay, we're gonna go with that. I like how he said I used brevity after his 2,000 word essay.
Yeah.
Satisfying. All right, heartbreak and satisfaction. I think we can all live with that. Guys, congratulations. This was a terrific season 7. Excellent work all around.
Amazing.